where we constantly have to be on guard about what we say, just in case it offends someone. It's a sad fact that it's still deemed socially acceptable to mock and ridicule those of us who are alone. How many times have you heard the borderline insulting moniker, Billy No Mates? Then there's the others who think they're being kind and sympathetic by quietly muttering, "Oh, that poor girl's eating by herself," without ever considering that maybe, just maybe, that poor girl has actually made a conscious choice to eat by herself. And by you labelling her solitude as something to be pitied, you have subconsciously reinforced a daft narrative that going it alone is something weird or abnormal. And don't worry, this isn't another of those "you need to lose yourself in order to find yourself" videos. That's a bold but ultimately vague statement, as if suggesting that every one of us is simply able to abandon their job and their home and head off into the sunset on their bike to wander aimlessly for several months until they come back feeling refreshed and reinvented. Now, this isn't a video encouraging us to take a reckless one-off trip. Instead, this is a video aimed at changing our outlooks on going it alone. And whether you're a biker or not, there's nothing to feel embarrassed or self-conscious about when you walk into a bar, a coffee shop, or a restaurant by yourself. I still remember the very first time I went into a pub by myself. It seems daft and cringeworthy looking back, but I had to spend a week planning it and building up the courage to finally walk into a public bar by myself. I was 18 years old, and although I had a few friends growing up, I was never what you'd describe as popular. You see, I was brought up in a strict, religious, old-fashioned home, and this led to social awkwardness, a lack of fashion sense, a limited knowledge of trendy music and television, and this backwardness led to the usual cruel schoolyard jibes and bullying. And while the cool kids got invited to parties or went clubbing at weekends, I was usually to be found stuck in my bedroom reading military recruitment brochures and dreaming of finally escaping my isolation. So one day I decided I was going to break the cycle of isolation and go out by myself. And believe me, it wasn't easy. I spent the week building up to the event, and many times I almost talked myself out of it. But I managed to keep my focus and determination. And it does make me laugh when I think back. You see, in those days many bars opened at 7 p.m, and I even planned that I'd leave my house at 7:20, so I'd walk into the bar at 7:30, and therefore there should be other people in there, and hopefully reduce the terrifying possibility of being the only customer in the place. And I remember shaking like a leaf as I walked in, and it seemed everyone was looking at me. But I'd already decided that no matter how awkward and uncomfortable I felt, I was going to have 2 drinks before leaving. And that's what I did. And it wasn't easy. I felt self-conscious, nervous and uncomfortable. And I imagined as though everyone was watching me. But of course, no one was. In fact, it's doubtful anyone had even noticed me. And on that subject, I want to talk to you about a phenomenon called the spotlight effect. A few years ago, a university ran a social experiment and asked a number of students to attend class wearing really embarrassing, outrageous t-shirts. After a while, these students were asked to leave class, and while outside were asked how many other students they thought had noticed their t-shirts. Their guesses ranged from 20 upwards, so that would have been some 3/4 of the class. But in actual fact, when the other students were questioned, only about 5 of them admitted to noticing the crap shirts. And that is the spotlight effect, in that we always assume many more people are watching us than actually there are. And the lesson to take from this is that most other people are so wrapped up in their own lives that they haven't got time to notice what we're up to. So this self-conscious social awkwardness is more in our own heads than anyone else's. So how do we go about throwing off our going it alone anxieties and start getting out there? Well, if you were hoping for a secret trick or a quick fix, well, you best quit watching this video, as there are no shortcuts in this game. You see, unfortunately, it's like many things in life. It's all practice, practice, practice. Consider it like physical training. Most of us couldn't wake up one morning and go run a marathon. Instead, it takes months of training, of building up strength and stamina by gradually increasing our distances and efforts, until ultimately we feel capable of running a full marathon. So if you're nervous about going it alone, remember what I did all those years ago. Set yourself a target, and no matter how much your anxious side tries to talk you out of it, hang tough and fulfill the goal you set yourself. And whether it's one drink in the pub or an hour spent in a coffee shop by yourself, force yourself to complete the task. Honestly, you'll feel a tremendous sense of achievement when you complete it. And once you've got through the first challenge, set yourself the next target. For example, this could be a meal by yourself or having a second drink in that bar. And so you're sat there by yourself and you're feeling awkward. Well, no matter what you're feeling inside, put on your game face. And by that I don't mean that gritty and determined look you'd need if you were charging an enemy position. I mean, put on your best confident and content face, as if walking into somewhere alone was something you've been doing all your life. And if you do catch someone staring, simply give them a big smile in the time of day. And in doing so, you subconsciously transfer that awkwardness back onto them. Over the years, I've actually gone past the point of confidence into the realms of not giving a toss. And a lot of the time I tend to oversell my contentment by fully leaning back into my chair or placing my hands behind my head and closing my eyes, as if I'm totally at peace and in a good place. Because who cares what anyone else thinks? As the philosopher Lao Tzu once said, care about other people's opinions and you'll always be their prisoner. And I want to nip something in the bud right now. If someone does comment on your solitude, don't ever, and I mean ever, take the easy route of self-depreciation by saying something like, yep, I'm Billy No Mates. Why the hell would you ever want to reinforce their prejudices? Instead, throw back a positive such as, absolutely, I'm by myself, it's the best part of the week for me. A lot of people like to use props to assist them while they're feeling self-conscious. The most usual of these is their mobile telephone, and it's kind of self-defeating. You see, training yourself to embrace the solitude, but at the same time furiously tapping and scrolling on your phone as if you're desperately apologising to a far-off recipient for choosing to be by yourself, well, it just don't sit right. So stick your phone away. Yeah, sure, it's fine to get it out now and again to check the time, or take a photo to remind yourself of how that one day you beat your anxiety and headed out by yourself. But on the whole, spending hours hunched over your phone isn't a good look. However, other props can be useful. They're a bit old-fashioned now, but a good book or a newspaper is often a nice prop to carry. Then there's those props that work in other ways. For example, sunglasses. I'm always wearing sunglasses, and that's not just because I've got sensitive eyes, but if your eyes are the windows to your soul, well, sometimes I just don't need every Tom, Dick and Harry to be peeking in. I once dated a girl who had a phobia of eating in front of people. And it really was a tragedy, as I loved my grub. So it was a relationship that was never going to last. And as we've already talked about, eating in a restaurant alone is the next level up from a solitary pint or a cup of coffee. But I really do believe it is a mountain that's well worth climbing, as let's face it, we all need to eat to live. And if you're going to cut short your day of embracing solitude just because you're hungry, then you're never going to achieve your ultimate goal of being 100% content in your own company. Just like before, keep your phone in your pocket. There's nothing worse than seeing someone holding a fork in one hand and their phone in the other. And remember when we were kids and our grannies used to chastise us for gobbling down our food or chewing with our mouths open? Well, perhaps it's time to quietly thank her for those lessons. And here's a tip. If you have been eating at home by yourself for a while, it's not a bad idea to record yourself, then critically analyse your eating habits, and if required, work on adjusting them. So in general, if you're eating alone, eat confidently, as if you know where your next meal is coming from. Savour each mouthful and take your time. And if you've got a beard, make sure you take full use of a napkin post-meal. Just trust me on that one. Friends, there's no hard or fast rules in this game. A lot of it is just down to self-confidence. And confidence is a learnt skill. Most of us aren't fortunate enough to naturally use self-confidence. It's something we have to practice and train to achieve. And just like everything else in life, it requires constant honing of skills. Remember the time you hadn't ridden your bike in months? And when you rode it out onto the street for the first time, you felt a bit nervous and lacking a bit of confidence. So did you knock riding motorcycles on the head and decide it wasn't for you anymore? Of course you didn't. You simply rode on until you got back into the groove. And that's how self-confidence is developed and maintained. So folks, the next time you're at a loss and in serious danger of developing cabin fever, get yourself out there and go it alone. Before you walk into that bar, pick the spot you want to end up at and walk towards it confidently. Not too fast and not too slow, with your head held high and the calm look on your face that says, I've been doing this all my life. See, life is so short, and ultimately we're all dying. And to sit around waiting for something to change, for something to motivate us, well, on most occasions, that just ain't gonna happen. And the only person that can change things is you. And if just one person watches this video and decides to take the first step towards breaking the chains of loneliness and isolation, then making this video will have been worth it.